When you live in a desert, temperature contrast can seem exaggerated. To an Arizonan, early spring in Europe can feel like the frozen tundra, and 37 layers of clothing barely scratches the surface for keeping warm. Despite the challenges, in April, not May, April of 2026, we set out to discover the essence of Central Europe. Our journey took us from warm, sunny Phoenix to London, where we caught a connecting flight to our first destination, Vienna, Austria. The next morning, we woke up to a beautiful view of the Danube River and the gray skyline of Vienna. It was April, not May. After a great breakfast at the Hilton Waterfront Hotel, we walked to the Stadion subway station and hopped on the U2 subway line to Karlsplatz station. From there, we walked north to Appengasse and Philharmonica Street, where we hopped on the hop-on, hop-off Blue Line bus. Stop number 4 is the Schönbrunn Palace, where we had an 11 o'clock appointment to learn how to make apple strudel.
Mein Name ist Liv und heute zeige ich Ihnen, wie ist ein ausgezogener Wiener Apfelstrudel hergestellt.
Viennese apple strudel is regarded as the best in the world, so learning how to make it in 2 different languages was a real treat. The sample we received reinforced Vienna's reputation for strudel.
Weiter ziehen, stretch it over the edges und noch einmal mit Fingerspitze so lang nach außen weiter dehnen. But we don't stop there.
After the demonstration, we visited the Easter market in the palace courtyard and strolled around the elaborate gardens in the back. The Schönbrunn Palace was the summer residence for Austrian rulers for more than 300 years. This 1,441-room Baroque palace is the most significant historical monument in Austria. After our visit to the Schönbrunn Palace, we hopped back on the Blue Line and got off at stop number 6, the Belvedere. This palace was built in the early 1700s and consists of 2 palaces, the Upper and Lower Belvedere. This is what the Lower Belvedere looks like on a nice day. It was taken in May, not April. We left the Lower Belvedere and walked through the surrounding streets on our way to the Upper Belvedere to hop back on the Blue Line once again. We came across this memorial to the liberation of Austria by the Soviet Army in April, not May, of 1945. We decided to stop for coffee on our way back to meet the bus. I don't remember the name of the place, but I call it the Hot House. It had to be at least 100 degrees in there. I couldn't understand why the guy behind the counter hadn't passed out. But despite the temperature, he was happily pouring his lattes and cappuccinos. It was there that we were introduced to marlenka cake, a delicious treat made with honey and condensed milk. After we got back out to the frigid air, we made a quick recovery. I figured it was probably the marlenka cake that saved our lives. On Tuesday morning, we left Vienna by train for Budapest. We arrived about 3.5 hours later and made our way to our hotel. We quickly discovered that the pedestrian street behind the hotel has a huge selection of shops and restaurants to choose from. On Wednesday morning, we walked from our hotel to the Doheny Street Synagogue to meet our Jewish Ghetto tour guide. The Doheny Street Synagogue is the largest synagogue in Europe and can seat 3,000 people. The synagogue was built between 1854 and 1859 in Moorish Revival style by a Viennese architect. The synagogue complex consists of the Great Synagogue, the Heroes' Temple, a graveyard, and a museum. The museum was built on the very site of the birthplace of Theodor Herzl, considered the father of modern Zionism. The complex was part of the Jewish Ghetto. During the winter of 1944 to 1945, 2,000 Jews died of starvation and extreme cold. Many were buried here in mass graves. Jewish law requires the dead to be buried outside city limits, but the Nazis, who occupied Hungary at the time, required the dead to be buried within the confines of the Jewish ghetto. Approximately 70,000 Jews were confined into an area of about 0.1 square miles. The ghetto was surrounded by high fences and heavily guarded. Disease and death were everywhere. In the garden behind the synagogue complex is the Tree of Life Memorial. This stainless steel and silver sculpture, resembling an upside-down menorah, symbolizes both mourning and remembrance. The piece was funded by the Emmanuel Foundation for Hungarian Culture, which was founded by actor Tony Curtis. The Rambach Street Synagogue was built in 1872 and in the Moorish Revival style as well. It sat in a dilapidated state for many years, but was beautifully restored in 2021 with a grant from the Hungarian state. After our exhaustive day of touring, we settled in for dinner of Hungarian goulash and langos. Langos is a deep-fried bread that looks like pizza, filled with different ingredients. They're very popular in Hungary. We opted to skip the alligator and kangaroo, which were both on the menu. On Thursday, we spent most of the day exploring Budapest. The Liberty Bridge was built in the late 19th century and spans the city of Buda and the city of Pest. Until 1873, Buda and Pest were two different cities on either side of the Danube River. Cars, trams, and pedestrians are all accommodated by the Liberty Bridge. On the Pest side, we visited the Central Market Hall, which opened in 1897. It's the largest and oldest indoor market in Budapest. The market has 3 floors of vendor stalls offering a wide range of products, including fruits and vegetables, as well as meat and a tremendous assortment of paprika. Paprika is a Hungarian word derived from the Serbo-Croatian word for pepper. We crossed the Liberty Bridge and explored the Buda side of the Danube. We explored the Gellert Hill Nature Preserve and the streets of the slower-paced Buda side. In the evening, we had tickets for a cruise on the Danube. We sat upstairs on the boat to get the best pictures without shooting through glass. I could barely move my fingers to snap pictures as we tested the limits of human endurance. I may have passed out. They say I was muttering something about the end of times as they dragged me off the boat. It was April, not May. Friday morning, we caught an Uber to the airport to catch our flight to Krakow, Poland, on LOT Polish Airlines. We arrived in late afternoon and got ourselves situated, eventually making our way to the outdoor Judah food court. It was there that I had my first chimney cake. They can be filled with all kinds of things, like ice cream and whipped cream. They're very popular all over Central Europe. I was in heaven, turning blue. At 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, we were picked up at our hotel for the hour-and-a-half-long bus ride to Auschwitz. The Polish countryside is beautiful with lush green woodlands, occasionally interrupted by homes of many different shapes and sizes. It was such a stark contrast to what we were about to see. Auschwitz was a group of camps, with the predominant ones being Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II, Birkenau. Auschwitz I was originally built as a Polish army barracks, but after Germany invaded Poland in 1939, it was converted to a prison camp. It was here that the Nazis perfected a system of mass murder and disposal of corpses. Those corpses were mostly Jewish, but also made up of other groups, such as those physically or mentally challenged. Anyone the Nazis considered less than human. After the Nazis perfected their method of mass murder, they built a new camp designed to implement their plan on a mass scale. In 1941, the Nazi occupiers built the Auschwitz II Birkenau camp. It was in this very spot that cattle cars filled with Jews and other undesirables were unloaded. So-called doctors would determine who would be selected for work and who would be chosen for immediate death. Those condemned to die were marched over to one of several gas chambers that could accommodate up to 1,500 people at a time. The Nazis blew up the gas chambers just before the Soviet army arrived in an attempt to hide what they had done here, but the effort was futile. There was just too much evidence. This is what remains of the murder factory they called Birkenau. On the ride back to Krakow, we had time to digest what we had just witnessed. It seemed surreal to think that those things could have happened, but they did happen. And without a Herculean effort to prevent it, it could easily happen again. Krakow is a beautiful city, and on Sunday, we took the opportunity to get to know it. We must have walked 350 miles. Well, maybe not that much, but it was a lot. We started off at Oskar Schindler's enamel factory. Oskar Schindler was credited with saving the lives of 1,200 Jews during World War II by giving them jobs in his factory, which prevented them from being transferred to the Nazi death camps. In 2005, the factory's administrative offices were acquired by the Krakow Historical Museum, where exhibits depict life in Krakow before, during, and after the Nazi occupation. The factory produced enamel products during the war. Later, we walked along the Vistula River and found ourselves pacing the runners in the annual Krakowian Marathon. It's considered one of the most prestigious in Europe. It's where the contestants literally run through history. More than 6,000 participants run for just over 42 kilometers. It was exhausting just watching them. We continued along the river until we got to the castle with the fire-breathing dragon. According to legend, a man-eating dragon plagued the city of Krakow. The monster was being appeased by a weekly ration of cattle. He was finally defeated by the king's son using a decoy cow stuffed with sulfur. Later, Krak the Younger murdered his older brother to take sole credit for the slaying of the dragon. You can't make this stuff up. Well, maybe you can, but that's the story anyway. After a while, the younger brother was found out and forever banished from Krakow. This sculpture commemorates the victory over the dragon. That evening, we ate dinner in the Kazimierz Quarter. From 1366 until 1800, it was an independent town. The northeastern part of the quarter was historically Jewish. This is the Rema Synagogue. It was built in 1557 and only steps away from where we ate, which happened to be right in front of the childhood home of Helena Rubinstein, who built a cosmetics empire on her mother's skin cream formulas. We enjoyed a stuffed cabbage appetizer along with pierogies and ribs. On Monday morning, it was time to get to the airport again for our flight to Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. We felt bad because we couldn't leave enough of our hard-earned money in Krakow.
There aren't any gift shops.
When we arrived at our hotel in Prague, it was cold and raining because it was April, not May. We decided to walk around the area of the hotel to get familiar with our new surroundings. On Tuesday morning, we walked over to the Charles Bridge to meet our tour group for the day. The Charles Bridge was started in 1357 by King Charles IV. It wasn't finished until about 100 years later. We began our walking tour of Prague at 10 a.m. by walking over the Charles Bridge, which spans the Vltava River. We walked through the Old Town, which is often used as a filming location for movies such as Amadeus, Mission Impossible, and The Bourne Identity. We took a tram to climb the steep hill to get to the Prague Castle, a complex of residence and workplaces for the President of the Czech Republic. It was built in the 9th century and has served kings, Roman emperors, and past presidents of Czechoslovakia. The complex has beautiful gardens, a huge church, and great views of the city below. We crossed back over the Vltava River and spent some time exploring the Jewish quarter of Prague. The area between the Vltava River and the Old Town Square was established as a Jewish ghetto in the 13th century. Jewish residents were confined to live, work, and bury their dead here. The quarter has many synagogues within its confines. This one is called the Old New Synagogue. It was built around 1270 and is associated with the legend of the Golem. Legend has it that the synagogue's rabbi, Rabbi Judah Loew, created a golem from the clay of the Vltava River to protect the Jewish community from persecution. The clay figure came to life after the rabbi performed a mystical incantation on it. But one day the golem started raging uncontrollably through the streets of the ghetto, causing chaos. The rabbi decided it was too risky to keep the golem alive, so he removed the incantation. He then hid the lifeless clay figure in the attic of the Old New Synagogue where, according to legend, it remains to this very day. We continued to Prague's Old Town Square. This vibrant area hosts restaurants, shops, a couple of churches, and the third oldest astronomical clock in the world. It was installed on the face of the Old Town Hall in 1410. Every hour, people in the square are treated to a show. Figures are set in motion, and the windows open to expose still more figures. A skeleton rings a bell. On our way back to the starting point, the Charles Bridge, we passed the birthplace of the writer Franz Kafka, as well as the Prague Municipal Library and the Clementium, a Baroque complex of education and science buildings. Once we arrived back at the Charles Bridge, we boarded a boat that took us on a peaceful journey on the Vltava River. The perfect end to our journey around the city of Prague. On Wednesday morning, we got up extra early and walked to the train station to board our 7:30 train to a town called Karlovy Vary to visit friends. The 3.5-hour journey took us through the Czech countryside in a comfortable, modern train. Karlovy Vary, also known as Carlsbad, is a small spa city founded in the 14th century. The city grew into a spa resort in the 19th century as a popular destination for the European aristocracy. We arrived on a beautiful sunny day and began to explore. We strolled around the park colonnade and passed the Thermal Hotel complex, which each year hosts an international film festival. It's among the leading film events in Europe. In 2021, the city became a UNESCO World Heritage Site under the name Great Spa Towns of Europe.
You're not in Rome. It just tastes like you are. Welcome to Pizza Mamma Mia. We have some of the best Italian food outside of Italy. Try our delicious calzones or our mouth-watering pastas, and of course our incredible pizzas. With so many different types of pizzas, you're bound to find your personal favorite and keep coming back for more. That's Pizza Mamma Mia, with locations in Karlovy Vary and Ostrov. Come in and enjoy. Welcome to Pizza Mamma Mia.
We walked to the end of the shopping district until we came to the Becherovka factory. Becherovka is an alcoholic beverage distilled from more than 20 different types of herbs and spices. Its secret formula was developed by Joseph Vitus Becher and a doctor around 1807. The original factory was converted into a museum, and the actual production moved just outside of the city. We took the tour and learned all about the process. At the end of the tour, we had an opportunity to taste several of their varieties. I had about 8 shots, but didn't feel anything. We toured the city's original bathhouse, where European aristocrats soaked away their stress. We had coffee at the famous Grand Hotel Coupe. The hotel began in 1701, eventually growing into the 228-room hotel of today. Over the years, it served as a shooting location for several movies, including the 2006 James Bond film, Casino Royale. We also drank from the hot spring fountains that are found throughout the town. It has a hot mineral taste. Enough of it would probably induce vomiting. It was much more pleasant to taste their world-famous waffle cookies that come in a variety of flavors. We visited the Visitor Center, which houses the most powerful hot spring geyser in town. We had a great time in Karlovy Vary, but now it was time to get back to Prague for the final day of our Central European adventure. Today was Thursday and our final day. We had nothing planned, so shopping was the theme of the day. I held up the walls of several of the 500-year-old buildings to make sure they wouldn't crumble, while Tracy did the hard work of deciding what to buy. They must have been very difficult decisions, as it seemed to take hours. I did my part. None of those buildings collapsed. Mission accomplished. It was finally time for dinner. We had dinner in a traditional Czech restaurant. We started off with the tiger shrimp appetizer. I ordered the schnitzel, and Tracy had a burrito. It was so nice to sample the local cuisine. It was Friday morning, and we were all packed up for the trip home. Except for having to run through Heathrow Airport to catch our connecting flight home, everything went off like clockwork. This trip had us on planes, trains, taxis, trams, and boats. Central Europe has so much to see and experience that you can't possibly cover it all in just a couple of weeks. We'll have to plan on another trip to take in some of the things we missed on this one. In May, not April.